Hey, what's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today we're talking about Icelandic band Cult of Lilith. It's Black Dahlia goes baroque with their highly diverse new album, Mara, via Metal Blade Records. But before I do that, if you'd like to stay up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. I upload new content every single week. Now, when we talk about Cult of Lilith, think again bands like the Black Dahlia Murder colliding with the more progressive and sometimes even djent and mathcore song structures of Inferi and Sikth, symphonic elements of Fleshgod Apocalypse, and bizarre baroque and classical randomness of Igorrr. It's a fusion that the band refers to as necromechanical baroque. Regarding the roots of the band's name, which by the way is also the name of my newborn daughter, shout out, quoting the band, the mythology of Lilith is so deep and fascinating with so many different facets to it and interpretations from different sources that I found to be perfect subject of a cult, and therefore the name of our band. She is interpreted in many different ways, and she appears in a lot of different religions and mythologies dating back to ancient Mesopotamia, Sumer, and Babylonia, Talmud. She is even referenced as being Adam's first wife and the mother of Cain. Unwilling to be submissive to Adam, she abandons the upper heavens and descends willingly to earth. In Hebrew tradition, she is seen as a demoness that attacks babies, causing their untimely crib deaths, and in other texts she appears as a night demon that influences men in their dreams, or as a disease-bearing wind spirit, while one of my favorite mythologies of Lilith is that she comes in the wet dreams of men and begets bastard Nephilim children from them. As for the music itself, I previously reviewed the band's 2016 EP Arcanum, which was very promising in its own right. It was a release that I described as grounded in melodic and technical death metal, but eccentric and taking us on a more blackened and somewhat experimental journey. This definitely still holds true on Mara, but has been expanded tenfold. Regarding the concept of this latest outing, quoting the band once again, Mara stems from the Icelandic word martröð, or nightmare. According to old folklore, Mara is a malicious entity that sits on people's chests while they sleep, bringing on nightmares. So, kind of like a succubus, I gather? The myth of Mara shares some similarities with that of Lilith, and with the lyrical content seeming like an assortment of different dreams and nightmares. I wanted to guide the audience into a turbulent journey through my mindset, experiences, feelings, stories, angers, and delusions. And much like the eerie randomness that come with dreams and nightmares, the songwriting and instrumentation certainly follow suit here. Right from the start, that very classy harpsichord intro you heard at the top transitions violently to the Black Dahlia Murder riff with equally vicious vocals. This segment alone was what initially brought me into taking the time out to cover this album, but then those sudden outbursts of almost Fleshgod Apocalypse-esque vocals kick in moments later, and in that point my mindset shifted from just the usual "fuck yes, this slaps" to, oh, it's gonna be one of those kind of albums. And if Cosmic Maelstrom just hints at some surprises to come, Purple Tide follows up, pretty much putting it all on the line with some very diverse and interesting synth work in particular. This track opens with an atmospheric, kind of Born of Osiris sounding intro. And just when I feel like I've gotten a handle on what to expect in the realm of symphonic and progressive death metal elements, we get a simulated, xylophone solo? These unpredictable shifts really elevate an already impressive album into the realm of what I consider to be album of the year material. There are so many bands I cover on a regular basis that have the technical and catchy elements of their sound down pat, but when you can combine this with a signature take and innovative approach, that's what really separates the good and great from the truly exemplary. Case in point, check out this Hammond organ solo that is somehow also on the same song. Comatose is another track that became an instant favorite for me. As a huge fan of the UK band Sikth, I love the similar way in which the band approaches this arrangement. Just a few seconds in, those early vocals reminded me of some really great times listening to Death of a Dead Day. This is a chaotic and highly technical song with clear mathcore and djent influences, but one still well grounded enough in the world of death metal that the purists out there should still enjoy it. And the vocal comparison is only further amplified with weird, very Mikey-esque half-spoken parts later on in the song. But the most impressive piece, arguably, is Profeta Paloma. Once more, there is a very solid foundation here, just in terms of great melodeath hooks and catchy vocal harmonies. There's even this part in the first third or so that genuinely evokes deep feelings of sorrow, in addition to having a really killer guitar part. But this really just ends up being the least that this song has to offer, as it later opens up into a truly stirring interlude with flamenco guitar from Rainier Hauxen, haunting vocals from Fernando Perez Cañadam, and fretless bass from Samuel Orn Buvarson. It's this moment in particular, though definitely not the only one, that brought me back to similar thoughts I had when developing my review of Igorr's latest album, Spirituality and Distortion. It further personifies the band's clear mission statement of eclectic songwriting that leaves the listener guessing, adoration of the music of other cultures, and always palpable feeling and atmosphere. But let's say you don't really care about all this artsy-fartsy bullshit.
It's like super pretentious meets uber pretentious, and they collide in a fucking shitstorm of hipsters.
Cult of Lilith still have you plenty covered in headbanging regard as well. Even the more standard death metal moments are plenty rewarding given some of the highly technical and of course heavy arrangements. Zangano is perhaps the best example of this more balls-to-the-wall approach. It's also got some nice blah. Listen to those frantic blasts and Beneath the Massacre guitars and tell me this isn't every bit as intense as your latest brutal death metal record. Ultimately, to avoid getting too long-winded and spoiling all of this album's charm, I want to first and foremost remind you that the purpose of every single one of these reviews is one thing and one thing only, to get you interested enough to check it out yourself. As for breaking down my own personal opinions into scores, I give Mara a 10 for enjoyability, a 10 for musicianship, and a 9 for innovation. Round those out to a 9.7, it's a solid A for Cult of Lilith. Get Mara this week again via Metal Blade Records. But now let me know what you think down in the comments. Are you a big fan of these death metal groups branching out and fusing new and sometimes even traditionally non-metal sounds into their approach? Or do you prefer to just keep things dark and brutal? Let's get a discussion going. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and stick around because there are plenty more other reviews, interviews, tier lists, and more to enjoy on this channel. So once more, subscribe if you haven't already. Also down in the description you can find links to our social media to follow us, metaltrenches.com for even more reviews and content, the weekly email newsletter, and also the Patreon and Subscribestar if you want to make that extra leap to becoming a full-on supporter and get access to early content. But that'll do it for this one. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.